Hello, this is Kayla Goodwin, and this is for the lesson plan assignment. My partner Natalie was recently, she's been going through a lot of rough times at her house, and she's been unable to film her part of the video. We've been in contact for the last week about it, trying to get it prepared and set up, but she's been trying to send you emails and through Canvas and through the email that you sent me to give her. But for some reason, I guess her messages are just not coming through. I apologize for the video being so late. It's just we can't. It's been really hard to get together, not like physically, but to work together on the video because she's been having hard times at home. So I thought I should just film the video part myself and at least have that submitted, so you can know that we have been planning it and have the lesson plan together that we submitted, so I can just explain it over this video. She said she would be able to film next week, so I thought that at least if we have this, then you could take that into consideration for the lesson plan presentation assignment, even though she's not able to be here. Okay, so our lesson plan is called Investigation Stations by Natalie Fronek and Kayla Goodwin. So that's our lesson plan is for 5th grade English. It would take about 55 minutes for the entire lesson, so probably like a one class time experience for the lesson. Our topic and unit of study is Unit 1, Meet the Challenge. We got that off of like an example textbook of a 5th grade class, and the topic would be Performance in Visual Arts. So the objective of our lesson plan is for students to learn how to analyze stories and determine if it has elements of a fairy tale. So this is a common thing that 5th graders would have to do, and so we thought that that would be a good jumping point for our lesson plan. Okay, so the ITSE standard that we used for this lesson plan was ITSE Standard 3A. Students create information from digital resources using a variety of tools and methods to create collections of artifacts that demonstrate meaningful connections and conclusions. So that's what we based our lesson plan off of. Our Common Core standard that we used was the integration of knowledge and ideas, analyze how visual and multimedia elements contribute to the meaning in a text. Okay, so this would be how our lesson plan would take place. First, we would start the class by having a slideshow displaying different fairy tale elements and pictures. We would ask questions to the students about what makes a fairy tale and how we visually know it's a fairy tale. So for our direct instruction part, we would go through some examples of fairy tales, point out the main elements of what makes them stand out from other stories, and we'd explain it to the students. Then we would assign each student or group of students a story. So for the guided practice part, we would have the entire class act as a detective group through a picture of Sleeping Beauty. They would raise their hands, students would raise their hands and explain what they find in the picture. They would explain what they see in the picture and how they find that as a fairy tale element. Then the class puts together an example profile and we file our case. So basically it's like an investigation type thing. So that would be what the students would find like kind of interesting and different and not just the same old English activity. So then we would ask students to do a call and response of the directions. We'd ask questions and the whole class would respond with the answer. Ask the students if they have any questions after that. That would be the check for understanding part. Then for the independent practice, students would work on their own with their Chromebooks to investigate their assigned story that we assigned in the beginning of the class to see if it should be considered a fairy tale or not. They would make sure to point out specific character settings and plot points of the story that would qualify them as a fairy tale. Then at the end of the class, we would have students examine each other's stories. They should assess if each student or group is on the right track of whether each story is or isn't a fairy tale. Then they would put their ballots, each group of students would put their ballots into a case file to turn in. Their ballot is their exit ticket from the lesson. So yeah, we've seen a lot of teachers when we would volunteer in classrooms, me and Natalie, where like the ending, what they would grade and that completed would be the exit ticket for them to be able to go to recess or lunch, or else they would have to stay and finish it. So that's what the ending of ours would be. Now for differentiated instruction, other students need special help in order to do like lessons sometimes. So we have to think about each student's learning style and how we would help with their learning to make sure that they're getting the full experience. So for our differentiated instruction, our visual learners will have the instructions written on the board so they can read the instructions in case, because a lot of students, if we just say it out loud, they wouldn't be able to follow along if they didn't have the written instructions there to act as a guide. Then the auditory learners are there for when we say it out loud. So they would have the message on the board, but if they can't really understand it, then we would explain it out loud. Then for the kinesthetic learners, the students use their computers to manually search with their team. So they would have their own independent practice with the computers in order to research. So that would be the more kinesthetic instruction for accommodation. So the materials and resources we would need for this lesson would be the instructional materials, which is the smartboard where we would write down the instructions, the Google slide presentation of what we're going to present in the beginning of the class to get the students beginning to learn about the topic. Then we have the Chromebooks for their own research instruction, for their own independent practice. Then they have ballot sheets of what they're going to turn in. And then we have the class fairy tale case file, which would be them investigating whether or not the story is a fairy tale or not, kind of like a murder scene, except instead of looking for clues of how the person's murdered, it's a clue of how the story is a fairy tale. Then our resources would be the California Common Core, the California State Standards, and Journeys by Huntington Mifflin Harcourt, that's the book that we got the unit example from for 5th grade, to make sure that our lesson plan was aligning with what current 5th graders would be learning actually in real time. And lastly, our assessment portion would be the ballots, and they would be handed in after class as their exit ticket. We will grade each student to see if their ballot was correct and if they learned the elements of a fairy tale. So that would be like the ending wrap up to the lesson. And so we would just check to make sure that all the students were really getting it for the fairy tale element type thing, and that's how we would assess the students to see if they needed extra further help for that. So this is like a one-time class period activity, and if it needed to be continued on, I wouldn't assume so, but with the assessment we would be able to figure out who needed extra help with the topic. So yeah, that would be the lesson plan. I just gave a general overview of what would happen and what our standards were and where we got our information. Natalie said she would be able to film next week. I don't know if that means she wants to submit her own video or if we're just taking the one that I'm doing right now as the lesson plan presentation. Also, I did notice you said to submit it to Padlet, but I'm unsure exactly where to put that, if there's like a specific class part of it or not, because for the Zoom meetings that you guys had previously, or for the conference meetings, I wasn't able to attend because of work. I was still working because I work at a fast food place, so they changed up the hours so that I wasn't able to attend those. So, and she said she wasn't either. I'm not exactly sure what she was doing during those times, but I also saw that you said to upload it to YouTube on the original document, so I just thought that I should upload it to there at least and have that submitted onto my my site and have it published, just to make sure. I'll obviously cut this out of it if I were to use it eventually for an actual lesson plan. I'm just explaining it to you via the video right now. So yeah, thank you for watching. That was Investigation Stations.